welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take interesting sources you send our way and really try to explore what makes them tick. And today, we've got something a bit different, actually. We're looking at some excerpts from a piece of fiction. It's called A Most Unexpected Brew.
Yeah, and the whole premise is, well, it's pretty fascinating right from the start.
It really is. Just imagine this. You're in a Hogwarts potions classroom.
Okay, yeah, familiar territory maybe. Aged parchment, that sort of metallic potion smell.
Exactly. But the people in it are the twist. We've got Hermione Granger, who's now, like, head of R&D for magical law enforcement.
That's a big role, yeah. And she's there.
She's there. And the potions master, teaching at Hogwarts now, none other than Draco Malfoy.
Right. That's the setup. Quite the pairing.
It really is. And the reason they're even in the same room is pretty serious stuff. A dangerous dark artifact has surfaced.
Okay.
And the only counter curse needs this really obscure specific potion. It's called Aetheria's Balm.
Aetheria's Balm. Got it. And Malfoy, he's the expert.
Apparently, yeah. He's the one who understands how to brew this thing. So what we get in these bits we're looking at is that first meeting.
That initial interaction.
Yeah, and it's this amazing mix, you know, their old arguments bubbling up, but also this this kind of reluctant teamwork starting. What jumped out at you first?
Well, it's definitely that history, isn't it? You feel it straight away, even with their new jobs. Like Hermione kind of jabs at him about being stuck in the past, and he fires back about her trying to, you know, turn everything traditional into a science experiment.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds about right for them.
It totally brings back that old dynamic. But you can also sense there's something else there now, under the bickering. A lot of shared history, maybe from working together professionally, like after the war, just sets the scene really well.
It really does. Okay, so then Hermione actually lays out the ingredients list for this Aetheria's Balm. And the descriptions, they're not exactly straightforward, are they? They're almost poetic.
Yeah, very evocative, like that first one you mentioned. Tears of the weeping willow, collected under a waxing moon.
Right. Sounds like something out of a fairy tale.
Sure.
What do you make of that?
Well, it sounds magical, but Malfoy, he just cuts right through it.
Does he?
Yeah, he basically says, oh, that's just dew from a willow tree. Simple as that.
Huh. So grounding the magical in the practical.
Exactly. It shows his, like, deep knowledge of the actual craft. He sees past the fancy words to the real component. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often poetic language might just be describing something, well, fairly normal.
That's a really good point. It's like he speaks the deep language of potions, maybe.
Right.
The one that connects the metaphor to the actual stuff.
Rooted in tradition, maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So then the next one, the whisper of a forgotten truth. That one definitely sounds mysterious.
It does. What's the story there?
Okay, so this is where it gets, I think, really interesting. Malfoy IDs this as powdered veritaserum.
Truth serum. Wow.
Yeah, but crucially, he says it has to be diluted, like very precisely. And veritaserum, well, it's obviously super controlled, highly regulated stuff.
Right, you wouldn't just be throwing that around.
Exactly. So the forgotten part, it probably means it's not used in regular potions. Maybe it's even restricted knowledge. It hints that Malfoy knows things that aren't, let's say, in the standard textbooks.
So he's tapping into something deeper, maybe a bit more obscure or even, restricted. But as they go through this list, the ingredients, they start to feel heavier, don't they? More personal.
Oh, absolutely. It shifts gears. We get to a single drop of blood from one who has faced their deepest fear, willingly given.
Okay, wow. That's not something you just find on a shelf.
No way. This needs a person to consciously do something significant, a real sacrifice almost. What struck you about that one?
It's the willingly given part.
Yeah.
That just screams vulnerability trust.
Yeah.
Someone has to step up and offer a literal piece of themselves, tied to facing down their biggest fear. It definitely raises the stakes quite a bit, more than just finding a rare flower.
For sure. And then the final ingredient. This one's maybe the most complex. The essence of a shared regret, distilled through fire and ice.
Essence of a shared regret. What does that even mean in potion terms?
That's the million-galleon question, isn't it? It moves completely beyond just one person's experience. It demands connection, mutual understanding, maybe even forgiveness.
It feels like it has to connect to the problem they're solving, like the dark artifact itself might be rooted in, I don't know, past mistakes, the divisions between people.
That's a really interesting thought.
It's not just, I face my fear. It's, we mess this up together. And, I mean, thinking about Hermione and Malfoy,
Yeah, their whole history just floods back in at that point, doesn't it?
totally. All the prejudice, the fighting. But then the source mentions that, like, grudging respect they developed later on through the war.
Right. They've both definitely got things in their past they probably regret, individually and maybe together. That ingredient just hanging there between them must have been intense.
You can almost feel the tension ratchet up.
Yeah.
And then Hermione asks the obvious question, whose blood for the earlier ingredient?
And Malfoy's answer, he just says, "We are using ours."
Whoa. Okay. That changes everything.
Instantly, they're not just consultant and expert anymore. They're partners in this, fully in it together.
And him offering her the dagger, that's huge, isn't it? Symbolic.
Massive gesture of trust, shared responsibility. But then Hermione, rightly, pushes on the other ingredient, the shared regret.
She asks him what it is.
She does. And his answer, well, it gets right to the heart of it.
What does he say?
He says the shared regret is for all the years wasted, for all the words left unsaid, for the world we almost lost because we were too busy fighting each other.
Wow. That's incredibly honest and self-aware. From him.
It is. It's a really profound look back, not just at their personal fights, but how those fights were part of a bigger picture, a bigger conflict that almost destroyed their world.
It makes you think, doesn't it, how personal stuff can blind you to the really big shared dangers or goals.
Absolutely. It reframes everything. Their old animosity wasn't just about them. It reflected the divisions in their whole society. And acknowledging that shared failure, that shared regret, that's the key.
That's the essence they need for the potion.
Precisely. And then the act itself. Both of them pricking their fingers, letting the blood drop into the cauldron. It's small, but just packed with meaning. That shared vulnerability.
And what happens? The potion.
It reacts, it starts to glow, this sort of soft blue light, and then gives off this gentle warmth, like something's been healed, maybe.
A visual of understanding or reconciliation.
Could be. And Hermione just looks at it and says so quietly, the essence of a shared regret, it worked.
Chills. It confirms that weird, abstract ingredient was the absolute key.
Exactly, but it's more than just the potion worked. Malfoy adds that reflection right at the end. Something like, some truths are indeed forgotten, only to be found in the most unexpected of brews.
That's beautiful. It ties it all together. The forgotten truth serum, the forgotten regrets, all coming together in this one potion.
Yeah, it suggests that sometimes the answers we need are buried in the past, in the things we've tried to ignore or forget, especially the shared stuff.
And the whole atmosphere in the room changes then, right? From the bickering at the start to this quiet understanding.
Yeah, the text says, a quiet hum of magic and the unspoken understanding. It's clear they haven't just made a counter curse. Something else happened there, too.
Something shifted between them.
Definitely. So when you boil it all down, this Aetheria's balm, it wasn't just about rare plants or weird powders.
No, it needed that human element. Deeply personal. Facing fear, yes, but more than that.
That shared regret. Acknowledging it, offering it up. It really shows how tangled up our personal histories and our shared histories can be with solving big problems, even magical ones.
And that whole list of ingredients that sounded so, metaphorical.
It turned out to be quite practical in a way.
Yeah.
Deeply significant practicalities. Dew, diluted truth serum, blood linked to fear, and this essence of shared mistakes.
It's a great reminder that sometimes the abstract stuff, the poetic stuff, has a very real, very potent core if you actually unpack it.
For sure. So this dive into a most unexpected brew, it leaves you thinking, doesn't it?
It really does.
Maybe think about your own life for a second. Are there connections, shared experiences, maybe even shared regrets that you haven't really looked at?
Yeah, things that might actually hold the key to something you're dealing with now.
Exactly. Maybe the strongest solutions aren't always about just pushing forward alone, but about looking back together and understanding those shared histories.
Acknowledging the common ground, even the difficult common ground. Definitely something to mull over. What unexpected brews might we find if we did that?